Good evening, Oak Bloke here, and I'm going to cover a new idea that I bought yesterday. It's HG Trust, ticker HGT, Hotel Golf Tango, and this article hung out to dry. Um, is covering the idea that. There was a massive drop in the share price yesterday. So if we go to, you'll see that it has recovered a little bit today, 23p. So yesterday's decision to buy proved to be sort of already in the money a little bit, but £4.10. As you can see here, I mean, it's retraced to here, so it's still a pound or yeah, nearly a pound below, or in fact more than a pound below where it stood before. Um, so this video is the article itself will be published sometime later tomorrow, but those of you that watch this YouTube channel get to hear and see the idea first. Seems only fair to me, because more people more people read the article than watch the video. So if you're making the effort to watch the video, then I think there should be some incentive. But ultimately, I mean, you make your own investment decisions, and none of this is advice. So it's just me covering this as a possible idea or talking about what I've done. So the reason I caught this yesterday was down to the fact that I've had my eye on it for a while. I know that it's a great idea, as in it's got a fantastic long-term track record. So it's barely run at a discount for 20 years. So yesterday, at a discount of 26.6%, I was delighted to buy it at that level of discount. I mean, that for me was a gift, uh, in my opinion. Um, and why did it drop? I mean, that's the next question. Why did it drop, and why am I not worried about why did it drop? So the drop was part of a wider drop across software yesterday. I think Bloomberg reported trillions were wiped off the stock market when software companies were hammered by a new release of software from a company called Anthropic's Claude, um, which promises to offer um, productivity benefits to the legal profession. Um, and it was interesting actually, because this morning there was an interview on Bloomberg, and don't remember who it was, but he was kind of the same opinion as me. I sort of thought, yes, there's sort of my view validated a little bit by somebody other than myself. And the gentleman that was on this morning's Bloomberg at about 8:10, I think it was. Uh, the point that that person was making was, well, software's not going anywhere. Take the legal profession, for example. The cost of, I think his numbers, not mine, but I think he's referred to the legal profession being something like costing 500 billion a year, and software is 5 billion of that 500 billion. So in other words, 499% of the cost of legal is not software; it's human beings and other costs, non software costs. So, in his opinion, software's got a much larger role to play. Um, my view on it, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, I suppose now I look at fundamental value and don't. I'm no, not particularly somebody that looks at technical charts and things like that, or at least I haven't been. Started to. I'm finding it very interesting, actually, just as a way of corroborating what my thinking is. But what you'll see in this diagram is, well, I mean, there's the 20-year performance for a start. So if you'd bought back here in 2005, you would have been buying at a vast discount and a price of about £1, whereas now, well, until recently it was at £5 something, £5.20, something like that. And today it's or yesterday it was at 370. I picked it up at 368, I think it was, in fact. And today it's at closed at £4.09. So it's quadrupled even after the drop. It's quadrupled or quintupled until its recent drop. But you can see here this level of oversold, kind of the only time in the past, well, certainly in the past 6 years. I mean, there was obviously a drop by here. I think this was maybe Liz Truss, maybe the Liz Truss September, the flash crash by there. But this one here is the depths of COVID, and you can see that's the first time since the depths of COVID that it's dropped by as much and become as oversold as it has. So there was technical reasons as well as fundamental reasons why I kind of said, wow, this is a great opportunity, or in my opinion, it's a great opportunity. And I suppose, fundamentally, has the world changed? Has this new software from Anthropic changed the world? Well, my answer to that is I believe the answer is no, and here's the reason why. Agentic AI is a productivity tool. That's all it is. It's automation. We've had automation within business and within software for centuries. Now, AI obviously has lots of buzzwords and lots of people talking about it and a lot of nervousness. I mean, there were some commentators yesterday saying, "Oh, we believe this, we believe that, but we're not sure." I get that. There's a lot of people that are nervous about the changing world. But look, my view on it, and this is the part of the reason for this article, was to say that just because some new productivity software has been released to the market, does that make vast swathes of existing software redundant or no longer? Are customers gonna leave that software in their droves? Rubbish. I just do not believe that to be the case. Nothing could be further from the truth, and that's why I swooped on HGT. Now, obviously, let's consider the facts. I mean, for a start, if you actually went out and bought Claude, now there are sort of, trial versions and freeware versions and this, that, and the other. But as a business, if you are going to go for a commercial version, put it into an enterprise, they've got something called a max plan, and that max plan is about $100 per month or £75 per month per seat. So it's £900 per person. And if you've got, say, 5,000 people, I mean, you can do the maths. 5,000 times 900 is a chunky load of money, and that's just for the seat. What you then have is something called a token usage. So per million tokens, and bearing in mind that, I mean, I looked for a definition and I read that it was something like, I mean, it depends on whether it's inputs or outputs. So if the agentic AI is reading things, it charges you at one rate. If it kind of then goes and, I don't know, generates an email for me out of what it's just read, it charges a higher rate. So these tokens get consumed, and I've seen this many times over my years, that when you charge people a kind of consumption-based model on tokens, people don't know what that means, what that translates to, but what it does translate to is fear in their head. Like, I don't know how much that's going to cost me. It might cost me, as a business, it might end up costing me 6 figures, might end up costing me 7 figures. So do I really want to invest in something without understanding its ROI in very clear terms? So this consumption-based model that Claude uses is, and what you've got to realize is that AI comes at a cost. I mean, we hear it gets rammed down our throats every day. Oh, the infrastructure investment into AI. Very interesting, actually. Michael Burry, and I'm going to go and sort of look this research up, but Michael Burry provided and shared a very interesting insight yesterday about the investment, the wall of money going into AI. He said the way they're getting around it, because vast amounts of money has been poured into investment into AI, but profits are not declining. Why is that? Very interesting to, and as I say, I mean, this is just what I think again, it may have been on Bloomberg, I forget, but or it might have been on Twitter even. So I've not validated this to be factually true. I mean, it's one of the things I am going to go away and have a look at. But his claim, he alleges that the way that the Mag 7 and businesses or the AI infrastructure companies are investing into it without dampening profits is just keep everything as construction in progress. Now, think about that. The way accounting works is that if something is construction in progress, you're capitalizing it, but you don't start depreciating it. You don't normally depreciate things that are in progress. So if things are going to be in progress forever, you'll never depreciate them. And if you don't depreciate them, you're not recognizing the cost. It's not dampening your profits. And he said that is the trick. That is the loophole that they are using. He It is alleged that he alleges. Sorry, I'm being careful because as I say, I haven't gone and looked. I'm going to look at some of their accounts and understand whether that is or isn't true. But fascinating that that is what's being alleged. But look, these companies are going to have to charge for these investments. So the cost of Claude is not insignificant. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I'm not saying that AI can't improve your productivity, because it can. If it's well targeted, it's like with any productivity though. Like if I had a productivity that, I don't know, I've got some machine that's going to switch on the live YouTube video of this channel and talk 24 hours a day, I could have 24-hour productivity of talking about who knows what via a productivity automation. I could have sort of a chat bot saying all sorts of nonsense down this video camera 24/7, 365. I could sort of do all of that. I'm not But the point is that wouldn't be probably a very good way of automating and achieving any kind of productivity. In other words, I could do that and spend money on it, but would it actually yield any end result? I mean, what is the end result? I suppose it's eyeballs and people watching. Would an AI realistically do any of that? Probably not. It would just be repeating and regurgitating a load of cliches and garbage, which is, in my opinion, a large volume of what you're subjected to on YouTube or on, a lot of I don't think there's a lot of original thought out there. I think a lot of it is just reading out RNSs and regurgitating stuff and coming up with cliches. It's all quite dross, I think. I mean, and look, I'm being a bit rude, but that's my opinion. That there's, so in other words, just because you can automate something, it doesn't mean you should. The second thing is, does automation replace what's already there? And I would argue, well, no, like, at least not today. I mean, Claude is a way of automating tasks, right? Agentic AI is a way of automating tasks, but it's an automation that's then interactive. In other words, so going back to the chatbot robot that's talking to you 24 hours a day down the Oak Bloke investment channel, let's call it that. So what about if that agentic AI, I could program it so that if in the chat function that you've got for those of you that are watching this live, you could sort of say, oh, tell me about Thor exploration, and the chatbot could go, let's go and look at some Oak Bloke articles and regurgitate a load of text from that. It could interact with you. That's what agentic AI does, is it interacts. But how's it doing what it's doing? Well, it's using a database. My articles, I was 780 articles. Those articles I mean, they're not a structured database, they're an unstructured database, but they are a database of content. Um, and I think this is one of the misunderstandings, that people think that AI is going to replace databases. That AI will replace Rightmove. There was a commentator yesterday who was saying, "Oh, I went and looked," because I think there was I sort of forget now, but I think it was the one commentator said, "Oh, Rightmove is dead. Like Rightmove is there's no future for Rightmove." Um, and the reason is that I could just use AI and say I'm looking for a house, with a view over the seaside that has 3 bedrooms and da 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 da, whatever you want to find, and that the AI would go and find it, and therefore Rightmove is redundant because the AI would be able to go and find a range of properties that met those criteria. Well, when I heard that person say that, I was like, well, but yeah, where's the data going to come from? Oh, each estate agent will publish their data. No, I'm sorry, you don't understand that automation does not work that way. It really doesn't. That if you've got like just this vast array of different sources and inconsistencies, you're not going to get a very successful agentic AI or a very successful automation. It's a bit like, if you've got sort of, square shapes and triangular shapes and round shapes all going into a machine, the machine's going to struggle and malfunction and whatever. If you just send in little square shapes, it'll cope a lot better. Yeah. And that's why you need databases. And who's got the biggest database? Rightmove. So, I kind of hummed and hawed actually about, should I buy HG Trust or should I buy Rightmove? Or there was a few others, but I settled upon HG Trust because it's a share that I've had a great respect for a very long time. 26.6% discount. Fantastic. Anyway, coming back to the central point here, would Claude ever replace like a payroll system, an ERP system, a procure to pay system, an engineering system? No, the database is still there. In the case of Rightmove, the other commentator said, "Oh yes, I used AI to search for a 3 bedroom house with views over the seaside and all the rest of it, and it just came up with a load of links to Rightmove. So why would I not just go on Rightmove?" Yeah, point proven. The database, that the software is going nowhere. If anything, it makes that software more valuable. And the reason is that the bit that Rightmove obviously have invested in over its years is its user interface. Well, what about if agentic AI, or AI more generally, is just another way of generating an interface into your software? Tell me about houses that have got blue chimneys. I mean, I don't know whether the agentic AI one day would be able to look at the photographs of the millions of houses on Rightmove and go, here they are, but the database is still Rightmove's database. Yeah. So it still comes back to a database. Could some other database evolve? I mean, yes, it could. And I mean, but databases have been going around and around for decades. And fundamentally, you've got quite a I just don't think that this upheaval that people imagined could happen within literally within sort of minutes of this, or day, within a few days of this new software being released, would sort of spell doom for these companies. It's not how businesses operate. I mean, businesses, for a start, are tied into contracts. Like, you'll have a software contract, you're tied into it. Moving from one software platform to another is a huge move, huge job, huge role. I sort of say in this article, people that move people from one system to another generally get bunches of flowers, boxes of chocolates, thank you cards. Sort of it's one of these things that is no easy task to do, both for the business and for the software provider that's moving them. It's a complex job. So you're not going to do that on a whim, and you're certainly not going to do it to some sort of agentic AI that has no database of its own, that has no structure, but that provides productivity to an existing structure. So the whole premise of this agentic AI destroying the software industry and wiping trillions off is just nonsense. I mean, it really is nonsense. If you actually logically think about it, it's kind of, it just makes no sense at all that the current capabilities of even just very clever software and do any of that. Now, could it reduce the number of seats? Yes. What would happen if it did? Well, they would charge a different way. I mean, whether that is tokens or modules or how they sort of change their revenue model, but software companies can and do and will. They already have. I mean, if you go back the past 10 years, there's been a complete transformation in how software gets charged for. Complete change. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm very skeptical about this drop in price, and therefore see it as an opportunity. So businesses do not miraculously jump from system to system. That moving systems is tough. You've then got the whole element of human beings do not want to make changes willy-nilly. They just don't. It's human nature to resist change, to say no, what we've got works. I My experience, most businesses will cling on to software until it's patently out of date or patently out of sort of causing significant pain. Businesses do not make logical decisions over their software. They will not move to the latest, and well, a few will. I mean, especially maybe like when a new person joins an organization and they're in charge and they've got the budget, that first thing they'll do is say, like, let's rip up the rule book and start again. Let's put in new systems, let's put in new software. So, when you get like the old CEO retires, or the old finance director retires, or the old HR director retires, and a new 30-something-year-old comes in, absolutely, software changes. Absolutely, it does. But otherwise, mm, not so much. I would say the replacement cycle is probably once in 10 years, so 10% per year, if that and I think it's when you consider that there are platforms that are patently old technology, client server based technology, that they are they're not cloud based, for example. When that 10% also includes software that is obsolete, that it's a move of generation, software that does or does not have productivity benefits built into it, like AI. So that 10%, I mean, if you've got a current up-to-date platform, that 10% is not 10%. It's going to be probably lower than 2%. It really will be, because people will not want change, or unless there are sort of very aggressive pricing. I mean, that's the other, that can be the other reason that drives people to want to change, is that software vendors could get greedy, could see that they, could believe that they hold a monopoly position when perhaps they don't. Anyway, um, I would also make the point that if you actually look at the success rate of AI projects, so even if you say cobbler's oat bloke, I'm going for it, agentic AI, that's the way forward. And yes, we're going to throw out our database and somehow just use unstructured, I don't know, Word documents, or we'll just have an Excel spreadsheet. Well, good luck with that, because I've never seen it work. But let's imagine you can make it work. Okay. You're the first in the world. Okay. But then you've got the further consideration that at the moment, 95% of AI projects fail as well. So, or at least fail to live up to expectation, that that they don't generate the return that people want or intend for them to return. And that's, part of that is that businesses are trialing things and the trials are failing, so they're giving up on it. They're saying, okay, well, that didn't work out. Let's try something else. Let's go back to what we did before. So the adoption rate is high. People are trialing things. People are attempting to improve their businesses. Of course they are. Like, you'd be mad not to, especially when, and this is perhaps the other point to make, is that especially when there's an appetite to make improvement. I think there's a pressure to make improvement. But you can see here, I mean, why do generative AI projects fail? Challenging change management, lack of executive sponsorship, poor user experience, model output quality concerns, hallucination, in other words, an unwillingness to to adopt new tools. I mean, these are happening like what? 90% of the time, there's an unwillingness to adopt new tools. I mean, that says it all. That's human nature. That is that human nature right there. And this is research from MIT. Uh, Despite 30 to 40 billion in enterprise investment, this report uncovers a surprising result that 95% are getting zero return. Now, look, I've seen AI generate a successful return in businesses. I've seen it completely fail. I've seen both. So I suppose I'm speaking from a position of knowledge when I say that whilst, yes, AI can and does and will generate returns. And I think that 95% is just down to businesses not knowing what to do, how to do it, imagining that they can throw out their software perhaps, and then they kind of get halfway through and then kind of go, well, hang on a minute, this isn't going to work. Like, this will not be successful. And then they abandon it and say it's a failure. So yeah, look, I mean, I make the point again. This has grown. This is now just sort of working into HGT. This has grown. I mean, this is the NAV millions. So you can see it's quintupled. That's the NAV pence, quintupled. So if you'd bought it back in 2015, it was £1.42. As at now, this is the NAV as at the end of September, which is the latest results. £5.45. So £4.09 versus £5.45. That's a £1.36 discount. I mean, I just would say have a think about what that means. So look at the returns that it has generated. Look at the returns from multiples. So returns from multiples, they buy something at this rate, they sell it at that rate, but also the returns from income. These businesses generate this much EBITDA, this much net income, and so the blue is the return from earnings. Okay, the red is the return from multiples, and you can see there was a big collapse of multiples here when after 2021 there was a tough time for private equity, but we can see that there's now sort of 2023, 2024, 2025 a better climate, but not an amazing. You can see here it's quite a tough climate, but a tough climate, let's put that into context. A tough climate means it's not growing by vast percentages, whereas in prior years, I mean, you can see here annual return. I mean, you've got annual returns some years of 40% plus, 50% here and here, 40% here, 20% across the number of years, and then 10% plus in most years. So a business that's generating that level of return with some occasional stumbles, to be fair, um, it is inherently attractive. So I think the other thing I would call out is a lot of the sectors they've been involved in for a very long time. The brands. I mean, you can see the brands there. That there'll be brands that perhaps you'll recognise that are um, recognizable within perhaps a specialist space if you are from the insurance sector, or yeah, just products you've worked with, or products that you've you've got paid by that payroll company or whatever. So there's lots of brands that are and the brands get bought and sold. I mean, it's a portfolio of companies, and that changes. And I sort of come up with some examples here where, yes, you can have a agentic AI, but it sort of needs a database and a structure, to for an agentic AI to be successful. I just don't understand why people don't understand that. Um, so yeah, it takes two to tango, and it takes a database and agentic AI yeah. So HG. The other point I make is HG have an in-house team generate or working on AI products. They're rolling those AI products out across their portfolio holdings. They actually have a value creation team of 60 people, or 60 over 60 people that are working on leveraging synergies, value adds, helping with, I don't know, legal compliance, helping with just introducing different portfolio companies to one another. Like, oh, you guys are trying to crack America. Well, these guys cracked America last year. Why don't you talk to them, see what they did? It's best practice, spreading best practice. So again, quite a good idea. I mean, if I was running such a portfolio, that's exactly what I would do. Is that I'd have 60 plus people just trying to find synergies across the because each business is run standalone. I mean, they're not all sort of branded HG Trust or anything like that. They carry on being called, whatever they're being called here. Visma is the biggest single holding, which is this one up here in the top left, Visma, which is a sort of Scandi ERP platform. So yeah, it's an interesting model which doesn't it's not a sort of let's call it all HG software or anything like that. HG just sits behind it silently, buys, builds, and sells. That's the model: buy, build, sell, but add value. And this area of AI is sort of one of the value adds. So again, I would say because the internal vendor and the internal AI, they understand their database and database structures. In my opinion, agentic AI potentially has far more chance of succeeding as an in-house product rather than sort of strapping it in from an external, because you've got all the costs, friction. They're not going to know. Like, I sort of make the example of, I give the example of pet insurance, for example. The the people from Anthropic are not going to be experts in the ins and outs of pet insurance. They're just not. So it's naive to think that this American software platform can somehow disrupt the pet insurance software industry in an instant, rather than sort of it being a far more gradual process whereby it might be HG say, do you know what? We've tried to do our own in-house AI. It's, agentic AI. Nah, we're going to partner with Anthropic. I mean, that might be what they end up doing, but that process will take several years and, would not be the threat that people are presenting it to be. I make the point as well. I mean, I come from an economics training trained background, and I make the point here about K and L. If you have studied economics, you'll know what I'm on about. If you haven't, then you'll be like, "What?" Uh, Nothing to do with like chemicals or periodic table. K is capital. I think it comes from maybe somebody German, that I think it was actually a German economist, that and I suppose capital is K for capital in German. Anyway, K and L is labor and capital. And I mean, the analogy I would draw with AI, I mean, the far more of the threat is, I would say, with people not getting cheaper, and in fact, people getting far more expensive. expensive through taxes, expensive through wages growth. Wages growth in the UK is 4.7% as of the latest results, which is November 2025. Thanks to demographics, that there are fewer and fewer working age people. Thanks to participation rates. I mean, if you see the participation rates in the UK and elsewhere are dropping, fewer people are wanting to work. And that might be they're retiring early. That might be that they just have given up on work. Might be that they've got sickness benefit, and or might be they've got mental health. That oh, I can't work because I've got mental health issues. There's evidence to say that the number of people off work through mental health issues has absolutely mushroomed. There's compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there's millions and millions more people with mental health issues than there were 5 or 10 years ago, apparently. So there are lots and lots of reasons why, with declining levels of labour, the only other alternative, I mean, obviously the cost of labour goes up in that scenario, and the only alternative is to replace labour with capital. And what is capital? Well, capital is agentic AI. It's also just software more generally. So I believe that yes, I mean, there's lots and lots of drivers, and HGT make this point as well, that the more expensive the labour is, you can see here hourly manufacturing wages per hour. Switzerland has one of the most expensive, the US, Sweden, Denmark, but they also have the highest spend per user, per employee on software. So, and those with cheap labor, Turkey, Hungary, Argentina, cheap hourly labor, low levels of software. So that trend for increasing labor wages is not, I mean, unless we get some sort of revolution with humanoids, as I say, agentic AI gets incredibly clever, and artificial general intelligence, unless and until labor is the only way to deliver labor, uh, unless you replace it with capital. And capital, really, to my mind, is software, and agentic AI is part of that software. It's productivity software that sits on top of other software. So 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 this idea that software is not going to be needed, software is going to be needed more, not less. And this was the point of this guy this morning. He said there's lots of reasons to think that we are underspending on software relative to things like wages growth. And I was like, great. He must have, maybe he saw this presentation deck as well, and was sort of thinking exactly the same thing. The OECD working age population since 2022 has been dropping by quite a bit. I mean, millions and millions. I mean, what's that? 900 million, and this is now at 850. So that's something like 5% of the working age population in the space of 3 years. Presumably, this is that there's sorry, no, it's not 3 years. That's 20 years. So there's sort of a large drop forecast each year, and of course that sort of just talks about working age population, not how many are participating or not. I think that statistic in itself, if you actually strip out the participation rate, I think the curve is steeper still, uh, in my opinion. So yeah, lots of reasons why software shouldn't be seen as the as sort of a on the cusp of collapse. It's also the point to make that in the 6 months to the end of 2024, the NAV increased by 17.6p. In the first half of 2026, due to a drop in multiples, because what HGT will do is compare its software. So I don't know, pet insurance, I'll keep going with that example. If there's a listed company that also sells pet insurance, I don't think there is, or there might be. I don't know, but don't know enough about pet insurance. But what they'll do is they'll value their privately held business versus. So it's a mark to market approach they're taking, and they made the point that in the first half of 2025 that the comparables, the listed comparables, had dropped. So there was a 6p drop to the NAV, which is about 1%, or maybe a bit under, yeah, maybe 1%. But then in the third quarter, so in between June and September 2025, which is the latest update, the latest NAV update, an increase of 10.9. So yeah, just to conclude, a business that is growing its profits. It's grown over many years. You can sort of see this is the sort of latest, or this is the 6 month result here, which obviously looks a bit pedestrian. But if you sort of go back 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, very impressive. Even I mean, something like 56% of the portfolio is sort of comes under ERP, accounting, tax, payroll, and those are the sorts of systems that are not that easy to replace and to swap out. I mean, it's not a 5 minute project; it's a 5 month project if you're lucky, and perhaps an 18 month project if you're not, or even longer. So yeah, there's lots of, I call them, barriers to exit, and therefore reasons to think that the churn will be very low, and historically has been very low. There's no evidence to say that the churn has suddenly increased or changed at all. This is the internal value creation aspect. And so yeah, no, to conclude, I mean, when you sort of see stats like this, that they run a rule of 44, so 33% EBITDA growth, um, and 11% revenue growth. Sorry, I haven't made that very clear there, but when you're getting that kind of average at a 26.6 discount, uh, I say at the end, yes, please. So that kind of concludes it, really. But yeah, look, I mean, as I say, it closed today at 40 or 410. So compare that to the five. I think it was 545. Close. Oh, it's this. Well, it's this bit by here. So it's this is the latest presentation deck. So 550.4. Um, it's still at a very good, I think, a very good discount. Um, Obviously, do your own due diligence and make your own investment decisions. But hopefully, listening to my logic of why I made my decision yesterday has been helpful. If it has been, just appreciate you liking, sharing, excuse me, subscribing, all that wonderful stuff. As I say, this will be published on the Oakbloke substack.com sometime later tomorrow. So thank you for watching this, and appreciate your watching this, and look out for more videos from the Oakbloke soon. Cheerio for now. Cheerio.